During a meeting, my son's preschool teacher called to say he had a 102-degree fever. I couldn't get away, so I texted my husband to pick him up. It wasn't until the meeting ended that the teacher called again. What kind of parents are you? Your kid is so sick he can barely stay conscious. Are you coming or not? I dumped the stack of files on my desk and grabbed a cab straight to the preschool. My son's little face was red with fever, and he started crying when he saw me. I didn't have time to comfort him, so I scooped him up and rushed him to the ER. When he finally broke the fever and fell asleep, I collapsed into the visitor's chair and opened my phone. Half an hour earlier, my husband's female client had sent me a message. Ava, I'm so jealous you have such a great husband. He found out I had a fever and a cold, bought me medicine, and even came over himself to take care of me. If you like him, take him. A scumbag and a slut are a perfect match. After sending it, I turned off my phone. At 2 a.m., the hallway in the pediatric hospital was finally quiet. After Noah's fever broke, he slept soundly, his tiny hand still clinging tightly to the hem of my shirt. I stared at the drip line as the medicine fell drop by drop, and my phone screen lit up again. Ryan's third message. Something came up with a client, and I can't get away. Hang in there for me. Hang in there for me. My son had a 102-degree fever. The preschool teacher had called 4 times, and he was taking care of another woman, then casually tossing me a hang in there for me. I didn't reply. I just dialed his number. It rang 6 times before he answered. It was loud on his end, with music, clinking glasses, and a woman's coy laughter. Hello. Ryan's voice was a little slurred. He'd been drinking. Noah's in the hospital. I know. Didn't you already pick him up? What did the doctor say? Viral infection. Fever hit 104.4. Then keep him in the hospital and spend the money if you have to. Don't be cheap. The woman beside him laughed again. I couldn't make out what she said, but Ryan was replying to her, his voice so gentle it was almost painful to hear. Noah wants to see you. My voice was very calm when I said that. I really can't get away right now. Mr. Bennett landed a huge contract today, then got sick at the celebration dinner, and nobody's taking care of him. I have to stay with him. Tell Noah Dad will come see him early tomorrow morning. The call ended. I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Noah must have woken up at some point. He was dazed from the fever and softly murmured, Dad. I pulled him into my arms and pressed my chin against his burning forehead. Dad is busy. Mom's here. Mom is always here. At 7 the next morning, Ryan still hadn't come. At 9, the nurse came to remove the 4. Noah cried from the pain, still calling for Dad. I coaxed him for a long time before he finally fell asleep, then picked up my phone to order takeout when a text popped up. It was from that female client, Chloe. It was a breakfast photo. A beautifully plated spread, pour-over coffee, and a plate of sliced fruit. Someone said he didn't take good care of me last night, so he insisted on bringing me breakfast first thing in the morning to make it up to me. So thoughtful. Someone. I didn't open the full image, but I knew that dining table. It was the island in my kitchen. The table where I bought, the tablecloth I picked out, the solid wood table I wiped down 3 times a week. Now it was holding coffee that belonged to another woman, photographed by another woman, and sent to me as a provocation. I set my phone face down by the bed and took 3 deep breaths. Then I opened my contacts and found one person. Brooke helped me set up a lawyer. The sooner, the better. Megan was my college roommate and had opened her own law firm. She focused on family law. She texted back instantly. You've made up your mind? I have. I'll set it up right away. Don't do anything rash, and make sure you keep the evidence. Evidence. I opened my chat history with Ryan and scrolled back 3 months. Working late tonight, not coming home for dinner. Out of town this weekend, take Noah to your mom's place. Dinner with a client. I'll be home later. The excuses kept piling up, and he came home less and less. I used to think he was really busy. After all, his startup had just gotten off the ground, and a lot of socializing made sense. It wasn't until last month, at Noah's preschool parent event, when he promised he'd come, and then said he suddenly had a meeting that day. I stayed with Noah to do crafts and play games by myself, while the other parents looked at me with nothing but pity. One mom leaned over and asked in a low voice, Is your husband super busy with work? I've never seen him. Back then, I still covered for him. Yeah, it's a startup. There's nothing we can do. Now that I think about it, he wasn't busy. He just spent all his time on someone else. At 2 in the afternoon, Noah's fever finally broke, and he had a little more energy. He kept clamoring for strawberries. I went downstairs to buy some. On the way past the convenience store at the hospital entrance, I caught sight of a black Porsche out of the corner of my eye. The license plate looked familiar. It was Ryan's car. He was here? I subconsciously looked into the car, but there was no one in the driver's seat. I carried the strawberries back inside. As soon as I entered the hospital lobby, I saw 2 people standing by the elevator. The woman was the same female client who had messaged me before, Chloe. She wore a pale yellow dress, her hair in big waves, and had her arm linked through Ryan's as she smiled like a flower. Ryan was dressed in a suit and tie, his hair perfectly slicked back. He was carrying a fruit basket and a bouquet of red roses. Red roses. He brought red roses to a pediatric hospital. I stood in the middle of the lobby and watched them laughing and chatting as they walked into the elevator. Ryan didn't look my way once. My phone buzzed. It was a message from him. I'm at the hospital. Which room is Noah in? I didn't reply. I just carried the strawberries upstairs at a slow pace. When I pushed open the door to the room, Ryan was already there. He was sitting by the bed, showing Noah something on his phone, while the fruit basket and roses sat on the bedside table, glaringly obvious. When Noah saw me, he happily shouted, "Mom, Dad's here. He brought me something tasty too." Ryan looked up and smiled at me. He'd practiced that smile for years. Warm, polite, and flawless. "You've worked hard." I rushed over as soon as I finished up over here. "Noah's okay now, right?" I set down the strawberries, picked up the red roses from the bedside table, and tossed them into the trash. Ryan's smile froze. "What are you doing?" "The pediatric hospital doesn't need roses. Those were for Mr. Bennett's niece. I just happened to bring them here." I looked at him and suddenly found him hilarious. This man was so lazy about lying that he didn't even bother to make it sound convincing anymore. "Noah, Mom's going to wash the strawberries." I didn't answer him and took the strawberries into the bathroom. The faucet ran loudly as I washed them again and again, until all the sourness in my eyes was forced back down. When I came out, Ryan was standing by the window on the phone. His voice kept very low. "Yeah, I'll come over tonight. I know you go ahead and order. Okay, love you." He said the last two words very softly, but I heard them clearly. He telling me he loved me was 3 years ago. I held Noah and fed him strawberries, one at a time, very slowly. Ryan hung up and walked over, trying to pick Noah up, but Noah pushed him away. "I want Mom." Ryan's face changed for a second before he quickly recovered. "Our son is close to you. Nothing I can do about that." When he said that, there was a hint of complaint in his tone, as if Noah not being close to him was my fault. I didn't say a word. He stood there for a while, then checked his watch. "Then I'm going. I still have stuff to do at the company." "Wait." He turned back at the door. "Noah had a 104.4-degree fever last night. He cried and called for Dad. He called you 6 times, and you didn't answer a single one." I dash. "You said you'd be here first thing this morning, and it's now 3 in the afternoon. I came, didn't I? To bring roses?" Ryan's expression darkened. "Ava, are you looking for a fight today? Didn't I say I had social obligations these next few days? Mr. Bennett is our company's biggest client. If you offend her, are you going to take responsibility? Is your son more important, or is the client more important? How can you compare them? I'm busting my ass for this family too." "For this family?" I stood up and stared into his eyes. "Our son was lying in the hospital with a high fever, and you were out there taking care of another woman. And you call that doing it for this family?" Ryan's eyes flickered. "How do you know? Did you check up on me?" "I don't have time to check up on you, but next time remember to keep your female clients in line. Don't let them send me messages." His face changed completely. "Ava, my relationship with Mr. Bennett is purely business. Stop being unreasonable." "I'm not causing a scene." I sat back down and pulled Noah into my arms. "Go. Noah needs to rest." Ryan opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but in the end he slammed the door and left. The sound of the door made Noah flinch. He looked up at me and asked, "Mom, is Dad mad?" "No. Dad's just really busy." "But I don't want him to go. I want him to stay with me." I kissed his forehead and said nothing. There were some things I couldn't say to a 3-year-old. Your dad may never come back to stay with you. This family might be falling apart. That night, Brooke sent me a lawyer's contact card. "Ms. Grant, the best divorce lawyer in the business. I booked you for 10 a.m. the day after tomorrow." "Thanks." "Ava, have you thought it through? Do you know Ryan's asset situation?" I scrolled through my phone gallery. Over the past 3 months, I'd taken a lot of screenshots. The selfies Chloe sent me on the nights Ryan said he was working late. The hotel location and couple's dinner Chloe posted on the weekend. He said he was on a business trip. And the breakfast photo from this morning, taken in my kitchen. I know. I have enough evidence too. "All right, see you the day after tomorrow." After hanging up, I leaned back in the visitor's chair and stared at the ceiling. Noah was already asleep, breathing evenly, his little hand still clutching the hem of my shirt. I suddenly thought of 7 years ago, when Ryan knelt in front of me to propose. Back then, he had just started his business, and he was broke. The ring was silver, and the diamond was so small you could barely see it. But his eyes were bright like stars, and he said he would definitely treat me and our child well for the rest of his life. We got married the second year, Noah was born, and the company also started getting on track. I thought life would only get better. Now that I think about it, it was probably from that time on that he got busier and busier. Busy enough to not have time for his son. busy enough to forget there was still a wife at home waiting for him. My phone buzzed again. It wasn't Ryan. It was Chloe. She sent a new message. The location was a high-end Japanese restaurant in town. The photo showed a table full of food, and across from it sat someone whose face wasn't visible, only one hand. I recognized that hand. A platinum wedding band, the anniversary gift I gave him last year, sat on his ring finger. I took a screenshot and saved it in my encrypted album. Then I turned off my phone and closed my eyes. On the third day of Noah's hospitalization, his fever finally broke for good. The doctor said we could go home after one more day of observation, and I finally let out a breath and took time off work. I was a creative director at an advertising company, and I happened to have a big project in hand. The client wanted the proposal next week. But I couldn't think about that right now. Megan's recommended lawyer was named Lena Grant. She was known in the circle as a steel magnolia and specialized in high-net-worth divorce cases. None of the cases she'd taken had ever lost. I set up a meeting at the firm for 10 a.m. and arrived at 9:30. Lena was younger than I expected, in her early 30s with short hair and a sharp black suit. She spoke fast, but her logic was clear. Ms. Grant, Megan gave me a rough rundown of your situation. Show me the evidence. I handed her my phone. She went through it for 3 minutes, and the crease between her brows only grew deeper. These messages and photos are useful but not enough. What else do you need? Bank statements, property records, company equity structure. If you can get his chats with that woman or hotel records, even better. I was quiet for a moment. I don't really have access to the company side. The shares are all under his name. You've been married 7 years, and the company was founded after the marriage. Under the law, you have half the rights. Lena looked at me, her gaze sharp. The real question is how you want to split this. Agreement, divorce, or litigation. If agreement is possible, that's best. I don't want this dragged out too long. Then let's talk first. Tell me your bottom line, and I'll draft the agreement. When I walked out of the firm, it had started raining. There were several messages on my phone, all from Ryan's mother. Ava, what's going on with you and Noah? Ryan says you're throwing a fit and picking fights with him. As a wife, can't you be more understanding of your husband? I didn't reply. No matter what happened, her son was always right, and I was always wrong. The year Noah was born, I had postpartum depression, and my mother-in-law said I was overthinking things. When Ryan's startup failed, I took out my dowry money to plug the hole, and my mother-in-law said that was only right. Now that he'd found someone else outside, my mother-in-law said I was making a scene. I got into a rideshare and gave the driver the hospital address. As we passed that Japanese restaurant, I glanced inside. It was 11:30 a.m., and there weren't many people in the restaurant, but a woman was sitting by the window, drinking coffee. Chloe. She had changed into a white dress. No one was sitting across from her, but there were 2 coffees on the table. The next second, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello. Ava, it's me, Chloe. I pulled out my second phone, the one I kept strictly for work, hit the voice recorder app, and held it near the speaker before pressing my primary phone to my ear. What do you want, Chloe? My voice was level, almost bored. A soft, tinkling laugh came through the speaker. I saw you in the rideshare. Just now. You looked at me through the window, Ava. Why didn't you stop by? I even ordered a second cup of coffee. I don't waste time sharing coffee with parasites, I said coldly. Chloe didn't take the bait. Her tone remained sweet, dripping with unearned victory. You know, Ryan told me you were cold and dull, but I didn't realize you were this stiff. He's been stressed for months, Ava. His company is expanding, he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, and what do you give him? Nagging about a feverish kid and complaining about his hours. He didn't mention he was spending those hours funding your lifestyle with our joint account, did he? I replied, keeping my voice smooth, letting her talk. He does it willingly, Chloe purred. That Cartier bracelet on my wrist? He bought it during his business trip to Chicago last month. The lease on my downtown loft? Under his company's corporate expense account. He said it's the least he can do for the woman who actually makes him feel like a man. My fingers tightened around my work phone, recording every word. Corporate expense account. Joint marital funds. Is that all? I asked, suppressing the sharp spike of disgust in my chest. Or did you call just to brag about living off my husband's stolen domestic budget? I called to give you an out, Ava, Chloe said, her voice dropping into a sharp, venomous edge. Sign the papers when he asks for a divorce. Don't make a scene. You're 32, a tired mom with a sick kid. Ryan is 34, rising, rich and handsome. He belongs with someone who elevates his image, not someone who drags him down into domestic misery. If you bow out quietly, I might even convince him to leave you the house. How generous of you, I said softly. Enjoy the coffee, Chloe. It's the last sweet thing you'll get out of him. I hung up, stopped the recording, and saved the file in 3 different cloud backups. 10 minutes later, I arrived at the hospital. Noah was sitting up in bed, color finally returning to his little cheeks as he chewed on a strawberry. When he saw me walk in, his eyes lit up. "Mommy, look. The nurse gave me a sticker." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I whispered, kissing his forehead. His skin was blessedly cool. The pediatrician walked in shortly after, reviewing his chart. "His fever has been stable for 12 hours, Mrs. Vance. The blood panel looks clean. You can take him home today, but make sure he gets plenty of rest and stays hydrated." "Thank you, doctor." I didn't take Noah back to our marital home. Instead, I called my mother. Half an hour later, my brother picked us up from the hospital lobby and drove us straight to my parents' house in the quiet suburbs, a place Ryan rarely visited because he claimed the drive was a waste of billable hours. My mother wrapped Noah in a warm blanket and carried him to the guest room while my father handed me a mug of hot tea. "Ava," my father said softly, his brow furrowed with quiet rage. "Brooke called us. Is it true?" "It's true, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "I'm divorcing him." My father didn't argue. He didn't ask me to reconsider or think of the family image. He simply nodded, his jaw set. "Good. We'll help you with Noah. Take whatever he owes you, and don't leave him a single penny he took from your mouth." I pulled out my laptop, sat at my childhood desk, and opened an encrypted file folder. It was time to stop being the supportive, quiet wife. It was time to tear Ryan Vance's life down to the studs. At 6 p.m. that evening, my phone rang. It was Ryan. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Where the hell are you?" Ryan's voice boomed through the speaker, loud and irritated. "I came home from the office. The house is empty and Noah's toys are gone. Did you take him to your mother's without telling me?" "I discharged him from the hospital," I said casually, leaning back in my chair. "My parents are helping me take care of him." Ryan let out a harsh sigh of exasperation. "Ava, stop playing games. I told you. I had a massive meeting with Mr. Bennett's team tonight. I came home expecting my suit to be picked up from the dry cleaners and dinner on the table. Do you have any idea how stressed I am?" "Your suit is hanging in the closet," I replied smoothly. "And as for dinner, why don't you ask Chloe to make you breakfast on the kitchen island again? I hear she's very accommodating." The line went dead silent for 3 long seconds. I could hear Ryan's breathing change. Fast, shallow, rattled. What are you talking about?" he stammered, his confident tone faltering. "Who told you about Chloe?" "She did," I said evenly. "She sent me photos of her eating breakfast at our dining table while I was sitting in the or holding your feverish son. She also called me today to boast about the Cartier bracelet you bought her with our joint account and the downtown loft you're paying for through your company expenses." "Ava, listen to me." Ryan's voice instantly shifted into damage control mode, loud and frantic. "She's lying. She's just a young, dramatic client. The company paid for her loft as a retainer incentive for the Bennett contract. It's business, Ava. Purely business." "Save it for the judge, Ryan." "What did you just say?" "I hired Lena Grant," I said clearly, letting every syllable sink in. "You'll be served with divorce papers tomorrow morning at your office. Don't bother coming to my parents' house. If you show up here, my brother will have security remove you." "Are you insane?" Ryan shouted, his voice cracking with fury and sudden terror. "A divorce? Over a misunderstanding? Ava, if you file for divorce now, it will ruin the Bennett deal. Investors check corporate stability. Do you want to destroy everything I've built for our family?" "You destroyed it the moment you let another woman sit at my table," I said. I hung up, turned off my phone, and handed my laptop over to Lena Grant, who had just joined a private video call with me. Lena stared at the screen, a cold, sharp smile playing on her lips. "He used company funds to pay for his mistress's rent and luxury gifts? That's not just marital misconduct, Ava. That's corporate embezzlement and dissipation of marital assets." "What does that mean for him?" I asked. "It means," Lena said, leaning closer to the camera, "that under state law, every dollar he spent on her has to be credited back to you in full from his personal share of the assets. Furthermore, because his company was founded during your marriage, I am filing an emergency motion to freeze his corporate accounts pending a full forensic audit." I looked out the window at the quiet garden. Do it, Lena. Leave nothing. The next morning at 9 a.m., Lena Grant's process server walked into the glass-walled headquarters of Vance Media Group. Ryan was standing in the main conference room, mid-pitch to 3 major investors from Mr. Bennett's firm, when the process server walked right past the receptionist, handed him a thick blue folder, and said loudly enough for the whole room to hear, "Ryan Vance, you have been served with a petition for marriage dissolution, an emergency asset freeze, and a court order for a forensic corporate audit." The conference room went utterly silent. Mr. Bennett, a stone-faced man in his late 50s, slowly looked from the legal folder to Ryan, whose face had turned ash gray. "What is the meaning of this, Ryan?" Mr. Bennett asked, his voice dripping with icy authority. It's a personal matter, Mr. Bennett," Ryan stammered, hands shaking violently as he clutched the papers. "A bitter domestic dispute. My wife is being unreasonable." "A domestic dispute involving a forensic audit of your corporate accounts?" Mr. Bennett stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. "My firm does not partner with companies whose CEO is under financial investigation for embezzlement. The deal is on hold until your legal affairs are cleared." "Mr. Bennett, wait." Ryan sprinted after him, but the investors walked out without a second glance. By 11 a.m., Ryan's phone was ringing off the hook, but he couldn't use his primary business account. Lena's emergency court order had temporarily frozen all corporate credit lines and company bank accounts pending the audit. At 1 p.m., my mother-in-law, Brenda, burst into my parents' living room. She didn't knock. My brother let her in only because she was screaming so loudly on the porch that the neighbors were coming out. "Ava," Brenda barked, her designer purse swinging wildly as she marched up to me. "Have you lost your mind?" Servicing divorce papers to Ryan at his office in front of his biggest client. "Do you have any idea how much money you just cost my son?" I sat on the sofa, calmly folding Noah's freshly washed clothes, not even looking up. "He cost himself that money when he spent our savings on his mistress." "Mistress?" Brenda scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "He's a young, successful CEO. Men in his position get tempted. It's your job as a wife to keep him grounded, not throw a temper tantrum because he gave a client some attention. You are ruining his life over a few photos." I set down a little blue sweater, stood up, and looked my mother-in-law dead in the eye. 3 nights ago, your grandson had a 104-degree fever. I said, my voice dangerously soft. He was crying for his father in the emergency room. "Do you know where your son was?" Brenda opened her mouth, but I didn't give her a chance to speak. "He was at a high-end hotel, feeding steak and wine to Chloe Bennett, using the money we saved for Noah's college fund. And when I called him begging for help, he told me to hang in there." Brenda's face twitched, but she hardened her stance. "He was securing a business deal. A man has to socialize, then let his mistress comfort him when he goes bankrupt." I said coldly. "Get out of my parents' house, Brenda." "You ungrateful little brat," Brenda shrieked. "I gave you my blessings when Ryan married you when you had nothing. Without Ryan, you're just a washed-up 30-something single mother. You won't get a single dime from his company." "She won't need to ask for a dime," a sharp voice cut in from the doorway. Lena Grant walked into the room, holding a sleek leather briefcase. She looked Brenda up and down with absolute contempt. "I am Lena Grant, Mrs. Vance's lead attorney," Lena said smoothly. "And if you don't step off this property in 5 seconds, I will file a temporary restraining order against you for harassment, which will become a public record, right alongside your son's corporate fraud depositions." Brenda's face went pale. She looked at Lena, looked at me, slammed her purse against her side, and stormed out the door. Lena turned to me, a cold, satisfied grin on her face. "The forensic audit came back, Ava. You're going to want to see this." Lena spread a thick stack of financial printouts across my parents' dining table. "Ryan thought he was clever," Lena explained, pointing her gold pen at a series of highlighted figures. "Over the last 6 months, he didn't just pay for Chloe's loft and jewelry. He transferred 15% of his company's equity into an offshore shell account registered under Chloe's maiden name." My blood ran cold. "He gave her company equity." "He tried to," Lena smirked. "He thought that if he funneled corporate shares to her before filing for divorce, those shares wouldn't be counted as marital property during a split. But he was sloppy. He transferred the shares using a digital signature from your home IP address on a Sunday night when you were at your mother's with Noah." "That's illegal," I whispered. "It's corporate fraud, tax evasion, and fraudulent conveyance of marital assets," Lena said crisply. "He didn't just ruin his marriage, he committed federal financial crimes. And guess who else is implicated? Chloe." "Exactly," Lena smiled. "Because she signed the acceptance documents for those shares, she isn't just his mistress anymore. She's his co-conspirator. And Mr. Bennett, the major investor, happens to be Chloe's estranged uncle." I blinked, stunned. "Her uncle?" "Yes," Lena said, leaning back. "Chloe isn't a high-net-worth client, Ava. She's a disgraced former socialite who used her uncle's company name to gain access to Ryan. She promised Ryan that if he took care of her and gave her equity, she would guarantee her uncle's multi-million-dollar investment." The full picture finally clicked into place. Ryan wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a desperate, gullible fool who had been strung along by a 24-year-old grifter. He thought he was playing the big shot CEO, but he was being played from day one. What's our next move? I asked. We invite Ryan, Chloe, and Mr. Bennett to a formal settlement conference at my office tomorrow morning, Lena said, her eyes gleaming like a hawk's. And we give Ryan a choice. Sign over 80% of all marital assets, sole custody of Noah to you, and full financial restitution. Or go to federal prison. At 10 a.m. the following morning, the grand conference room at Lena Grant's law firm was suffocatingly tense. Ryan sat on one side of the long mahogany table. In just 3 days he looked like he had aged 10 years. His eyes were sunken, his designer suit unpressed, his hair messy. Beside him sat his corporate defense lawyer, a sweating man in his 50s who kept checking his watch. Chloe sat 2 seats down from Ryan, wearing a bright red designer dress, but her usual smug posture was gone. She looked nervous, her eyes darting repeatedly toward the door. I sat across from them, dressed in a sharp charcoal suit, flanked by Lena and my forensic accountant. The door swung open, and Mr. Bennett walked in, accompanied by 2 stern-looking corporate attorneys. Ryan instantly scrambled to his feet. Mr. Bennett, please let me explain. Sit down, Ryan, Mr. Bennett said, his voice dropping like an anvil. He didn't even look at his niece. He sat at the head of the table, looking directly at Lena. Ms. Grant, show me what you found. Lena opened her folder and projected a series of documents onto the large wall monitor. Over the last 8 months, Mr. Ryan Vance embezzled $420,000 from Vance Media Group's operating capital, Lena stated clearly. He used $180,000 to purchase luxury goods and pay rent for Miss Chloe Bennett. The remaining $240,000 was illegally transferred into an offshore shell account, attempt to hide marital assets from my client, Mrs. Ava Vance. Chloe's face turned white. Ryan told me that was his personal bonus money. Shut up, Chloe. Ryan snapped, glaring at her with pure hatred. You were the one who demanded the loft. You told me your uncle would pull his funding if I didn't give you a stake in the company. You gave her equity? Mr. Bennett's voice cracked like thunder through the room. He turned a lethal glare on his niece. Chloe, you stole company credentials from my office to fake a client referral. Uncle, enough. Mr. Bennett slammed his hand on the table. He turned to his lawyers. Cancel all contracts with Vance Media Group immediately. File a formal civil suit against Ryan Vance for corporate misrepresentation, and remove Chloe from all family trust funds by the end of the day. Chloe gasped, tears spilling down her face. Uncle, please. You can't do this. Get out, Mr. Bennett said coldly. Chloe looked at Ryan, reaching out to grab his arm. Ryan, do something. You promised you'd protect me. Ryan shoved her hand off him so violently she nearly fell out of her chair. Get away from me, you crazy bitch. You ruined my life. I ruined your life? Chloe shrieked, her sweet facade completely shattering into ugly, desperate screaming. You were the one who couldn't keep your pants. Zip. You begged me to stay at your house while your wife was at the hospital. You're a pathetic, broke loser. Security, Lena called out calmly. 2 large security officers walked in and escorted a screaming, crying Chloe out of the building. The heavy glass door slammed shut, leaving a suffocating silence in the room. Ryan slumped back in his chair, staring blankly at the polished wood table. His empire was gone. His big client was gone. His mistress was gone. Lena pushed a thick legal document across the table toward Ryan. This is the final divorce and asset division agreement, Mr. Vance, Lena said, her tone smooth and merciless. What are the terms? Ryan's lawyer asked hoarsely. Mrs. Ava Vance receives sole physical and legal custody of Noah, Lena listed off. She receives full ownership of the marital home, 85% of all liquid bank accounts, and full reimbursement of the $420,000 dissipated funds, to be paid via the liquidation of Ryan's personal shares in Vance Media Group. Ryan's lawyer looked at the document, then looked at Ryan. If you don't sign this, Ryan, Mr. Bennett's team and Mrs. Vance's team will file criminal fraud charges with the district attorney by 2 p.m. today. You will be facing federal prison time. Ryan sat frozen. Slowly, painfully, he raised his head and looked at me. His eyes were filled with bloodshot tears, begging, desperate, hollow. Ava. He choked out, his voice trembling like a child's. Please, we built this life together. Remember the silver ring? Remember when we had nothing? I made a mistake. I lost my head. Please don't destroy me like this. I looked at him. This man I had loved for 7 years, the man I had given my youth, my money, and my devotion to. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel hatred. I felt nothing at all. You destroyed yourself, Ryan, I said softly, handing him the black pen. Sign The paper. Ryan's hand shook violently as he gripped the pen. Tears dripped onto the white paper as he scribbled his signature on the final line. Click. I took the signed agreement, handed it to Lena, and stood up. Without another word, without a single backward glance at the weeping man in the suit, I turned and walked out into the bright morning sun. 6 months later. The spring air was crisp and warm as I pushed Noah on the swings at the park. Near my new home. It was a beautiful 3-bedroom townhouse in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. I had bought it outright using my share of the liquidated marital assets. My advertising career had taken off. Free from the constant weight of managing a ungrateful husband's life, I was promoted to senior creative director at my agency, leading a team of 12 brilliant designers. Higher, mommy. Higher. Noah giggled, his little legs kicking happily toward the blue sky. Hold on tight, sweetie. I laughed, pushing him gently. My phone chimed in my pocket. It was a text from Brooke. Did you see the news about Vance Media Group? I pulled up a news article link she sent. Vance Media Group files for bankruptcy. Former CEO Ryan Vance evicted from luxury residence. The article detailed the total collapse of Ryan's startup after investors pulled out and forensic audits revealed massive financial instability. His mother had been forced to sell her suburban home to cover his mounting legal debts, and Ryan was currently living in a cramped, 1-bedroom rental on the outskirts of the city, working as a mid-level sales rep for a logistics firm. As for Chloe, rumor had it she had been cut off entirely by her family and was working at a retail counter downtown, her credit scores ruined beyond repair. I closed the browser and blocked the news site. Their ruined lives weren't my business anymore. My phone rang again. This time it was an email notification from my bank. A monthly child support transfer from Ryan's garnished wages, automatically deposited into Noah's trust fund. Mommy, look. A butterfly. Noah called out, pointing his chubby finger toward a yellow butterfly fluttering over the green grass. I walked over, picked him up in my arms, and hugged him tight. His skin smelled like warm sunshine and baby lotion, healthy, vibrant, and happy. It's beautiful, Noah, I whispered, kissing his soft cheek. I looked up at the open sky, feeling the light breeze on my face. The storm was over. The house of lies had burned to ashes. And from those ashes, my son and I had finally built a home of our own.